chance of getting it.
Okay. Awesome. I'm good. How are you doing? Good. Was that work or was that?
I went out to Texas to Dars
Okay.
and did a book signing out there
Oh, good
last
for her.
Saturday. So
That
I
go
went
well?
out. Yeah, it actually did. And
Good.
drove back on. We left Sunday and finished up Monday. So 2 long days on the road.
Yes. You did, for sure.
That is a long ride. I've never
806
driven that far.
miles.
Oklahoma was the furthest I would go.
Yeah. You're gonna love it. Well, I mean, there's just like a little north.
That was 10 hours. What's it,
It's
Texas?
about 12 hours.
12.
Further.
Yeah, much further.
This is a little bit north of.
Depends on what side of Texas.
Yeah.
Because Texas is 6 hours, right?
Yeah.
I was on a music tour one time with some friends, and we drove from almost Key West, like whatever, right before that big long stretch of Key West, all the way to New York City in one go.
Oh my God.
Didn't stop. Well, I mean, we stopped, but we didn't like get in a hotel. Like we just took turns.
That was almost 24 hours.
It was a nightmare. I hated it. We also took a van when Ike and Claire got married. We took a van from here to almost California. Like, what is that, New Mexico?
You're live.
And that was crazy.
We how you doing? When Hurricane Irma hit, I was down in Fort Lauderdale for work, and
Hey, Papa Joe.
instead of trying to get flights, and they were flooded.
Yeah.
We opted to drive, and it was 3 of us, and it took us 19 hours to get from Fort Lauderdale to my house.
That is hard.
Yeah, it was rough.
We got
Not to mention there's no places to eat until you got into Georgia. No, we were in Texas. Oh gosh. Visiting my sister. We came behind the storm.
Huh?
She did have a pretty good storm while we were there, and like a pretty good sized wind hit the roof of her trailer, and then from the she has a like a back porch, and it hit that, and I mean
Sometimes I'll turn it off for Sunday.
the house, and I'm like,
Sometimes it's Wednesday before I realize it's still on silent.
you know, and so I'm
Mine now doesn't.
pitch black out with
I'll
the
hardly
flashlight on
ever
my
get a
phone,
phone call.
trying to see what was going on, because I didn't know
All
if
my
it
calls
was damage.
at 1 in the morning. Or
Scared
after.
the tar out. I bet it did. And I'm like,
I have
and then it was
2
just so
o'clock
windy
tomorrow
and everything. I'm like,
We'll be done by 2
I'm
o'clock.
gonna probably sleep
Yeah,
in the
it's
flyer
just.
in the living room.
That's what I think. That's what
At least it's kind of
thought it was about a
edge of
30-minute
the
deal.
house. Scary. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
2 minutes. We're live now. They can see us.
What?
Can't really hear us.
I forget how bright those lights are.
Don't bother me.
Yeah, you don't look at them.
Don't look at them.
Don't look at them.
That's what messes you up.
I bet that did make a little noise. Oh, well.
May have a look through with martini in your eyes.
Like, I really don't wanna.
I said, may have something to do with martini in your eyes too.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the lights. I don't know, they don't look that bright on Sunday.
These ring lights are live, ladies and gentlemen. On the live feed.
They are.
Just throw it out there.
No new
Do
news.
with that information what you will.
Get over and just break.
Okay.
All right, let's roll. Music, Miss Barbara. It's 6:30 Apple time. It's 6:29 Eagles Way time.
Welcome to Eagles Way Church, the third Wednesday night on financial literacy. I hope you have grasp a lot of good information over the last couple of weeks. We have 2 more weeks, and it has been very, very good. I think I said the first time I introduced Jacob that 3 things in your life are so important: your finances, your family, and your friends. Those 3 F's are the good F's in your life. And so I encourage you.
What are the bad F's?
I'm not going there. What I encourage you to do, you can go online anytime if you've missed the first couple of weeks, or at the end, you can get all 4 of them anytime online. Encourage you to do that. My wife and I, 40 years ago, more than that, 45 years ago on High Falls Road, we had a guy come to our church on a Wednesday night, and he talked about finances. And there was one thing that we learned that helped us more than anything else over the years, besides the investments you're going to talk about tonight, which is awesome. We didn't learn about that until too late. But, yeah, but if you can get one thing, and most of the time on a Sunday morning you go to church somewhere, if you get one thing that morning that helps your life, it was worth going. And that's usually what happens. That one thing hits you and you go, yes, I needed that. So thank you for joining us. And again, thank you, Jacob, for what you've been doing. It's been awesome. God bless.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I don't need that.
You don't need that.
Thank y'all for coming, showing up for the 3rd week. This is the week that I made this class for. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I like. Everything leading up to this is kind of foundational, and learning how not to swim against the current. Now we're going to talk about what is it, Liz? Huh?
Your mic sounds weird.
Right.
Touching your beard.
What's that a minute? Is that better, Liz? Lost my clip. Okay, anyway, this is the week where we learn how to put wind in our sails and get the boat moving a little bit. This is the fun part. Last week we talked about the emergency fund, paying off debt, and getting that 3 to 6 month emergency fund going. The reason for that is when you have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, suddenly you are no longer beholden to a job or something like that is not treating you well. When you have the freedom to say, you know what, I'm not going to be treated inappropriately, I'm going to be treated like how I need to be treated, the world opens up to you. So getting to that point, not having any debt, and having 3 to 6 months where you could quit your job and look for something, huge amount of freedom and super important. Now we've removed all the roadblocks, and we can really start going with the wind here. Really recapping this, the penny question: would you rather have $1 million now or double a penny for 30 days? It starts off really slow, kind of boring, and then 30 days later, you've got $10 million. This isn't real. This doesn't exist. Thanks for joining us, Dusty. This isn't real. You can't go to a bank and get this deal. No one's going to give you this deal. But we have to create what we can create. Sorry, I'm having microphone issues. No, is it good? We have to do our very best to mimic this in order to build wealth for us and our children and that type of stuff. So today we're actually going to talk about how we can create this in our lives, not over 30 days, but over 30 years. We're going to talk today about what it's like in a 401k match, a fully funded IRA, and being mortgage free. So the first thing I want to talk about is risk. Risk is something that you have to take on if you want to build anything. Living an extremely safe life often will just give you a very safe return. So you have to take on as much risk as you can without burdening yourself emotionally and creating too much stress. The more risk that you can take, the more return that you can realize, but how much can your body and your mind take? That's very important. I have a bag of groceries here. And I don't want to make anybody feel bad. I do want to juxtapose the amount of risk that two different jobs have. Let's talk about someone that bags groceries for a living. And let's talk about someone that takes out $500,000 in a loan and starts a business. Which one of those took the most risk? The business did. What is the risk that you take bagging groceries day to day? Paper cut. I literally have paper cut and sprained ankle because I was trying to think, right? There are also a lot of people competing for that job, right? So that drives the price of what you can get paid bagging groceries down. It's a very safe job. You can probably get that job pretty simply. You could probably accomplish that job on a day-to-day basis and get a paycheck. But you're only ever going to get so wealthy taking that amount of risk. Now, if you take $500,000 loan out and you say, I'm going to start a business, there's a ton of risk there. What makes someone able to take that risk and succeed? Those are the things. What factors make you take that risk and succeed? That's what I want to get to. And this is what I came to. This is a Jacob-ism. This isn't from any book, and I think it's great. And this is my basis for how you can realize that return. Risk links the skills, the intellect, the work ethic, and luck of individuals to their financial returns. Furthermore, the bigger the problems you solve in your life, the more you can expect to return. So skills, intellect, work ethic, and luck. Which one of those can you control? You can't control luck, right? So I see a lot of people online very mad at wealthy people, very mad at rich people. I think what they're actually mad at might be lucky people. There are a lot of lucky people that have a whole bunch of money just from luck. They're born into a good situation. It's how it is. I'm with you. I get mad at some of those people too. But there are a lot of people that got where they are because of their skill, their intellect, and their work ethic. These are things that most people can have and create in themselves. So let's test this theory. You get to buy one of these two cards for $100. What is the risk that we are taking here? What can you lose? You can lose $100, right? Which card's worth more money? He says left. He says, was it Bo Jackson versus Frank Thomas? Anybody have a guess? The left card's worth $5,000. The right card is worth $1. The knowledge of the card is worth $4,900 in this example. Skills, intellect, luck. Skill is knowing card collecting, studying it, having a deep understanding of it, being able to identify different cards, their value based on what era they were from, that type of thing. Intellect is knowing baseball as a sport, the people on the cards and how they impacted baseball. So how did you solve that problem? With skill, intellect, or luck? Intellect. You solved it with intellect. There could be somebody here that doesn't know anything about baseball, but knows a ton about baseball card collecting. And that person has skill, you had intellect. You had something that created value, right? You could have just, Elizabeth, you could have just guessed left or right. And if you were lucky, you'd have $5,000, right? That's how these things interact with your return. So we got to talk about how do we mitigate risk. This is the cornerstone. And I didn't have time today. I was looking for, Warren Buffett has this really great speech. It's like 30 minutes long. He did it in front of a college graduation or whatever. Very fancy. Like Harvard or something. And The thing that he was talking about was, I missed out on Apple. I missed out on Microsoft. But I'm still worth almost $200 billion. He's like, I don't think about what I missed out on. I think about, I invested in things that I deeply understood and could see the value in. So he was all in on skill, building up. And in the first week, you remember we talked about learn to learn. That's leading into skill and intellect being the thing that can put wind in your sails, as opposed to luck or hard work. Hard work's what you got to do every day. Skill and intellect with investing is how you get the wind in your sails. Investing in things you don't understand is called gambling, speculating. What if I don't understand anything? Well, we got to learn how to learn again. That's very important. The more you understand things, the more your skills and intellects are a wind at your back. The more you understand things, the more efficient your hard work is. This is really important because hard work, I respect people that go to work every day and work their tails off. I really do. But skill and intellect makes the hard work that you're doing more valuable. Because if you understand the task that you're doing, you can do that task faster, you can do it more efficiently, and therefore create more of a return. Skill and intellect make hard work worth more return. They're synergistic. They all work together. So really building your ability to learn is important. And the more that you understand things, the less you can rely on luck to get you where you're going. Skill, intellect, and hard work make it where luck is less of a factor in your life. These three, if you do these three things well, you are mitigating the risks that you are taking by understanding them better. So now, the very first thing Elizabeth asked me when I showed her week one and I went through it, is she said, you keep saying, oh yeah, you're going to get $1,000 a week and you're going to get 7% return. Who's giving you this money? This is where we're finally going to answer that. We're going to start talking about assets and how they work. The first thing I want to talk about is a store of value. A store of value is an asset, currency, or commodity that can be saved, retrieved, and exchanged at a later time without losing its purchasing power. So let's think of it this way. Can anybody name any stores of value that just come into your head immediately? It's something that maybe isn't money, but you could store money in it and be reasonably sure that you're not going to lose that money. Funny. That's a lot of people think that. And yes, in a way, 100%. But
Think what? Repeat what you said.
house. I'm going to go no on that, but I get where you're going. And maybe. Anything else?
What about baseball cards?
Baseball cards. Great. Yes. Old money, like coins and kind of stuff. The big one that comes to my mind is gold, silver. Yeah, jewelry, stuff like that. Good. Let's talk a little bit about currency. This is the dollar from, where does it start? This actual chart starts in like 1635 or something like that. But this is the value, this is what your dollar can buy starting in like I can't see it.
$100 in 1990.
The chart starts, chart starts at 1635 and goes to 2019. That is the value of the dollar. So if you put $100 in 1990, it's worth $64 today. Your savings account loses money year over year over year. It's a terrible store of value. In fact, the Federal Reserve targets losing 2 to 3% a year. They want that because it's staying flat or even deflating is way worse for the economy than inflation. So the target is for your dollar to be worth 2 to 3% less year over year. Money sitting in your savings account it is the opposite of investing. It is losing money.
How does it lose value?
Because it can buy less stuff. So I used to go to J. Henry's and get the kids' chicken tenders, and it was $5.99.
Repeat what she said.
Oh, sorry. How does the dollar lose money? Because it can't buy as much is the answer. I used to go to J. Henry's and I would get the kids' chicken tenders, It was like $5.99 for years. That was like, man, I survived. Like, I went on dates. I got my wife on J. Henry's Kids chicken tender dinner. She was ordering, like, always, like, the salmon, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, God. And what's the kids' chicken tenders today at J. Henry's cost? It's like $7.99. That's how it happens. The number stays, this is good, the number stays the same. And your emotional attachment to the number stays the same. But what you can buy changes. I'll never forget my first $100. I had $100. I'd gotten a Sega Genesis for Christmas or something. It was a Nintendo for the layperson. I had saved up $100, and my dad took me to a video game like swap meet where like people, it was like a flea market type of deal. And I was like, I have $100. That was the first time I'd ever had something with 3 numbers in it. $100 still feels like a big deal to me. But really, it's $64 now. And when your mind connects that, you start to go, oh man, should I keep my money? I have all this money in my savings account. Is that a good idea? It's a terrible idea. Over 30 years, it's just going to go down and down and down and down and down. So I have some questions. I want to link this back to mitigating risk and the skill, intellect, work ethic, and luck. Does skill give you money? Now, this is going to be, people aren't going to like my answer to this. Does skill give you money? Not, great. She said hard work does. The cash flow of a business gives you money. Does intellect give you money? I agree. I think that the cash flow of businesses give us money. Does work ethic give you money? If you work for a business that has positive cash flow and they pay you out of that, and they reward you for your skill, intellect, and work ethic, yes. That's what I want to get to, is just being smart doesn't give you money. Just being an intellectual doesn't give you money. Just working hard doesn't give you money. Like, Elizabeth, you have a business, right? If you spend $1,000 on food and sell it for $800 and work your tail off, did you make any money? In fact, you gave people money. So hard work didn't give Elizabeth anything. Her skill and intellect, it didn't give her anything. The positive cash flow of her business, if she spent $1,000 on food and sold it for $1,200, she got $200, and then taxes, and then rent, and then you get what I'm saying. The positive cash flow of that business is what created the money in this. Does luck give you money? I mean, you could just find money on the ground. So I'm going to go with yes, but not reliably. Let's not let that be the thing that we're relying on. Let's let skill, intellect, and work ethic create a positive cash flow for us. Now, you don't have to own the business. We'll get to that in a second. Gold is something that people think a lot about as a store of value. And if you don't know much about investing, this is a pretty good store of value. If you bought $100 worth of gold in 1999, it's worth $780 today. Holding gold can increase in value if you hold it long enough. See that big dip? Anyway, so let's ask those questions. Does skill give you gold? No. Does intellect give you gold? No. Does work ethic give you gold? No. Does luck give you gold? No. How do you buy gold? Cash flow of a business, positive cash flow of a business, money comes in your hands, you exchange it for gold, and now you've stored your value in something that has a pretty good chance of maintaining or even going up. Really important. Now we're talking. That right there, if you don't know, is Apple's campus in Cupertino, California. If y'all don't know, big Apple fanboy. I think they're geniuses. This is Apple's ascent to $3 trillion in market capitalization. If you had $100 worth of Apple stock at its IPO in 1990, it is worth $69,000 right now. As of yesterday, ChatGPT told me that, and then I checked it via Claude and Gemini.
This is not just a store of value. This is a giant gust of wind in your back, right? And you can build real wealth on this. Does skill give, so I'm gonna ask this question really specifically. Does skill give Apple value? Yes. They hire the smartest people on earth to build their stuff because they have the most money to be able to afford the very best people. Does intellect give Apple value? Again, smartest people on earth. Does work ethic give Apple value? They have 164,000 employees showing up to work every day. In a 40-hour week, that's $6.5 million or 6.5 million hours of work happening every single week. That's 341 million hours of work happening every single week. If you own that business, you have all that skill, intellect, and work ethic building something that's incredible. Did luck give Apple value? Right place at the right time. Apple wasn't much of a company before the iPhone. They were the same as Samsung, Sony, Samsung and Sony, if you put their value on a chart, I mean, we all know Samsung and Sony, they're big companies. But if you put them next to Apple, they look like child's play. They were that for years, and they all competed. Samsung, Apple, Sony. They were trying to make an iPod. They were trying to make a thing. And then somebody had an idea to blend the iPhone, or to make the iPhone blending a couple of products, and it exploded and changed the world. 51% of the $3.2 million market cap of Apple comes from just the iPhone. Luck, skill, intellect, work ethic, all joined together to explode. That's real. That's what we want that at our backs. And if you do it right, you can be an owner of that company. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Here's the problem, though. What if you put all your money into Apple and they didn't invent the iPhone? Now we're gambling because you don't know if Apple's going to invent something new or not. All you know is what they've done in the past. You have no idea what they're about to do. So you can invest with the knowledge of what they've done in the past and say, I confidently think that they're going to make more. They could tank tomorrow. Federal government could put a regulation in place that just decimates them out of nowhere. Just there's nothing they can do about it. That's where we have to start thinking about diversification, because we can't predict what's going to happen. Because if we're trying to predict what's going to happen, we're undoing all of our skill, intellect, and work ethic. We're going right back to luck. You're not good enough to do that. And in fact, no one has ever succeeded over 30 years. And we'll talk about that in just a second. Diversification is a strategy of spreading investments across a variety of assets to reduce overall risk, meaning if one investment performs poorly, others may compensate, mitigating that potential loss. So you've got $1,000 and you're going to put it all in Apple, and you're like, I'm hoping. Well, what if instead of that, you found something that if Apple goes down, what's something that could go up in its place, right? Same way, if Apple goes up, this other thing might go down, and you balance those scales at. That's diversification. And this is where we're going to talk about quite possibly the most important invention in the last 100 years that no one talks about, and that is index funds. My favorite index fund, I don't think you should invest in any one index fund, and I don't, but this is a really great one because it's so clean to talk about. This is the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is a collection of the 500 largest companies in the United States that are publicly traded. There are companies that are not publicly traded. They are not in this. These are publicly traded companies. And this data is from 2023. This is very different today. But you'll see up there Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA, Lilly, Facebook, Visa, Amazon. There's 500 of them, right? And they're all in different markets, right? There's that at the top right, that's technology. And then on the left, that might be food and agriculture. On the right, it might be the financial sector. Again, on the left, it's retail. These things balance each other. When technology has a bad month, maybe agriculture has a good month because of that. These things all tug and pull at each other. And what they do is they create an average. You're betting on, if you were to become an owner in these 500 companies, basically what you've done is you have bet that the entire industry and the American government and our confidence in our systems and governance moving forward are going to create a world where these companies thrive. And when one company has a bad week, a bad year, goes bankrupt, that's only a blip in your overall investment. They all help each other out.
So how do you get that?
I'm gonna tell you, that's good. Let's link it back to skill, intellect, and work ethic. 28 million employees work for these companies. That's 1 billion hours of labor per week. That's 52 billion hours of labor per year. All of that is for one focus, and that is to create more value than they had the previous day. And if you're an owner of that, you get a very small slice of that increase. These companies are managed by the literal smartest human beings on the earth. They don't get these jobs being lucky. CEO, you don't get that being lucky. A little bit of ownership, yeah, you can inherit that. But managing this and it being successful, that's not luck. And are these companies lucky? Absolutely, they're lucky. They have benefited from decades of really great governance by our government. Our geography in the earth couldn't be more strong of a place to have a country. Oceans on both sides. That is all luck. And these companies have benefited from that. So that's the S&P 500. That is diversified by 500 companies. It is very simple to buy an index fund, which is what that container is called. S&P 500 is called an index fund. You can buy a total U.S. stock market index fund. So that isn't just the 500 biggest companies. That's every single public company that exists in the United States. You can purchase that as one thing. It costs like $200 to buy one share of it. The key there, the 500 greatest companies of all time, in order to create value, they have to get a little bit bigger, and they're already humongous. If you're also buying those little companies, you're going to benefit from the little guy that becomes the humongous guy over 20 years. That's called small caps. Those small caps feed into those larger caps. So buying the total U.S. stock market, very good investment, very diversified, and when there are ebb and flows in one industry or the others compensate for it. If you want to get even more diversified, this is what you can buy: a total world stock market index fund. This is every publicly traded company on earth. You can get that diversified. Very simple to buy those things. Any questions about that? I know that's a ton. Index funds are I love talking about them. Anybody?
Who controls them? Who controls them?
Who's
in charge of it?
There isn't really an in charge. I mean, there is a brokerage like Vanguard or BlackRock, but really all they do is split your money up evenly between all the companies. So if there's 500 companies, they weight them and then put your money into them. They don't make any decisions.
It's all computerized. It's not a bank or anything like that.
It is a bank, yes, called a broker. But yeah, they are responsible for taking your $200 and splitting it amongst all those companies. And it's very transparent. They can't do tomfoolery with that.
So, if I only have $1,000 to invest, and I haven't put it in anything else, anything at all, I just sit in a savings account, is this the best route to go, or am I going to do something else before I get to this with some of the money? What are you?
Yeah, and if we think back to the roadmap, right?
Repeat my question for the audience, if you don't mind.
If I have $1,000, is this the best place to put my money? And this is what I would say. And everyone has a different risk tolerance. Everyone has a different set of skills. If you own a business, it might be much more profitable to invest that $1,000 in your business rather than this. I can't speak to those. What I will say is, if you have no debt, no consumer debt, and you have 3 to 6 months expenses saved away, this is an incredible option for your $1,000. yes. But everybody's situation is different, everybody's risk tolerance is different. There's also companies in here that you may not align with ethically that are just lumped into these, and I don't think, if that's important to you, there are ways to mitigate that. So this is something else to think about.
Just saying you don't give advice on.
Oh yeah, it is also somewhat illegal for me to give you advice. So,
So I'm just, yeah.
but from if you take time to learn and think about this on your own, I think you'll come to, do you have other options that are better than this? Yeah. Cost of ownership. Nothing is free. These index funds aren't free. So let's talk a little bit about costs. I got 4 things here that I want to talk about costs. What are the costs? Everybody knows. What are the costs involved in owning a home long term? Just shout them out. Roof, lawn care, HVAC, maintenance, insurance. It's endless, right? So you buy a house for $170,000, and at the end of your life, it is worth $325,000. Everybody's like, look what I did. Look at that. How much have you spent maintaining that house? So if you really factor it out, is that good of an investment? Now, the important thing is not having rent to pay when you can't work. That's very important. So owning a house has that specific benefit, right? But from an investment standpoint, kind of crappy when we talk about costs. Very intensive. Guitars. Paul, what is the cost of owning a guitar? I'm just kind of wanting everybody to have to chew, right? Paul's not here. But you can't keep it in the heat. Can't keep it outside in the rain. If it's worth a ton of money, that guitar right there that is on that is a 1959 Les Paul Burst. It's worth about $400,000. You have to have insurance on that. Nobody would know that. It looks like every one of them that we play up here. But you got to have insurance on that, right? You got to have security around that, et cetera, et cetera. Cost of owning gold. Same thing as the guitar. That junk's heavy. You got to have somewhere to store it. You got to protect it. There's a cost, an ongoing cost to owning that gold. It's not just the appreciation that I showed earlier. There's cost of owning that. You need a building to put it in. Beanie Baby. That's the Princess Diana Beanie Baby. That thing is worth either $0 or $10,000 depending on who you talk to. The cost of owning that is you got to if you want to try to sell it, you got to market it, you got to find a buyer, et cetera. Everything has a cost. Let's talk about the cost of these index funds. This is unbelievable. The cost of owning an index fund is 0.03% per year. It is almost there is so little human interaction. There is so little work ethic that is being put into maintaining these that the companies that compete to sell you these can do it for almost nothing. Some of the biggest organizations on earth are the brokerages that sell these things, and they make money selling it at 0.03%. The S&P 500 and the total U.S. stock index, you give up 0.03% per year to own it. The difference between owning that and owning a home is not even remotely close when you want to talk about a wind at your back. Not even remotely close. The total U.S. stock market, I have that twice. That should be total world stock market is 0.06% because it's a little bit harder to manage because it's so much bigger. But still, almost nothing, right? So your cost of owning these things are tiny unless you pay someone to help you manage it, which I'm going to make a bunch of people mad that do that, but we'll talk about it. Index funds manage themselves. All they have to do is split the money up in the companies, that's all. And they can do that with a computer. Like one dude with a computer probably manages 10,000 people's index funds. That's how little labor there is. Now, money managers add fees. They add 1% on top of the expense ratio so instead of paying 3.03% to own an index fund, suddenly if you pay someone else to manage it, Charles Schwab, Edward Jones, there's no reason to not say it, Those people add 1% on the top of it, period, point blank. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but we should do the math. A $7,000 annual investment making 7% return over 30 years. If you don't pay a money manager, that turns out being $739,000. If you do pay a money manager, that same investment is worth $661,000.
Why do people do it?
Because they're scared. And some people should.
Why do they, repeat the question?
Why do people pay this? A lack of skill, a lack of intellect. They're trading skill and intellect for labor. Everything comes back to those things. Instead of their own skill and intellect, they're paying someone else to give them skill and intellect. Everything comes back to the same thing all the time. So you're thinking, and this is what they'll tell you, is, oh, we can beat the stock market. If I beat the stock market, I'm worth my fees, right? Let's do the math. Really simple math. Oh, I lost my slide. I had a slide for this. Oh, no. Oh, there it is. So if they get an 8% return and charge you a 1% fee, they make $739,000. And if you manage it yourself and get a 7% return, wait a second, I get $739,000. So they have to beat the stock market by using their skill and intellect. They have to give you a full point of alpha above what the market, alpha is beating an index fund. They have to beat the market by 1% for you to break even. They have to beat the market by greater than 1% for you to realize a gain on their skill and intellect above your own. No, this is proven. Over 30 years, there have been 2 money managers that have ever beat the stock market over 30 years. 2. And they won't take your money. They're doing other things that are way bigger than that. Every other money manager on earth has not beat the stock market over 30 years. It is proven time and time again. Warren Buffett made a bet. He said, I will make a $1 million bet today that if in 10 years, if you can beat the total stock market index fund, the total U.S. stock market index fund, I'll give you $1 million. And a whole bunch of people tried, and 0 people won. It's just plain math. You lose money by someone managing your money, period. Unless you've got so much of it that you're working in hedge funds. We can talk about all that later, but a hedge fund is a whole different thing. All right, let's talk about the buckets. Now we're going to get into how do you do this. There are a couple of different, I call them buckets. This is, you have to put your money into a thing in order to then buy assets with it. The 3 big ones that we're going to talk about are the IRA, the 401k, and the brokerage. The first one is the IRA. What an IRA is an individual retirement account. Every United States citizen gets one of these. It is a special account that by having a social security number and being a citizen, you are entitled to. And you have 2 options with that account. You can put money pre-tax, meaning out of your paycheck before you pay taxes, into that account. That's called a traditional IRA. Or you can put money in after taxes, like go ahead and pay the taxes now. If you do that, you never pay taxes on it again. The traditional IRA has the potential to give you more money today in exchange for paying whatever the tax rate is in the future. And then a Roth IRA has the ability to pay the taxes now, have a little bit less now to work with, but not pay taxes in the future. Everybody gets one of these. Everybody gets to put $7,000 a year right now. It goes up a little bit every year. This year it's $7,000. Every United States citizen gets one of these accounts, and you can put $7,000 in it every single year. Every year that you're alive and you don't put it in, you lose that. You lose that year.
The contribution has to be from earned income.
That is correct, yes. That's very good. What he said is the contribution has to be from earned income. Very important is you can't, if you don't have a job and you just have money sitting there, you can't put that money into an IRA. It had
With traditional as well, or just the Roth?
both, yeah. I wanted you to answer it just in case I was wrong, though. Yeah, so you have to have a W-2 showing that.
What's the pros and cons of each one?
That is really,
What's the question?
what's the pros and cons of each one of these? That is a really deep question, and it basically comes down to, do you think taxes are going to be bigger in the future or in the past for your income level? And it has to do a little bit with compound interest math on what if you have a little bit more to give now versus not give now.
So what have anything to do with your age? Like if you're older and you're starting to invest, one wouldn't.
No, I don't think that's going to make a very big difference at the end of the day. Yeah, I chose a Roth. I made the bet that I think taxes are going to be higher in the future because of the way that our debt is in America. That's what I did. But I think someone way smarter than me needs to talk about. There's a lot of compounding math that you can do there, and some people are really passionate about traditionals, and I'm not that guy. But I chose Roth. Let's talk about benefits of each. I'm going to take a drink of water. The benefits, and this is a huge, huge, huge benefit, and something very special about the IRA. Your deposits are liquid. If you put $100 into it, you can sell whatever index fund, whatever investment you bought with it, and whatever money that you deposited, you can get out. But you can't get out whatever gained. So if you put $100 in and let it sit for 3 years, and it turned into $150, let's just say, you can sell that stock, that investment that's in there, and pull that $100 out without any penalty. It's an incredible savings vehicle. The downside is you could lose money in your investments in the short term, and if you sell, you just straight up lose money. So there's still a bunch of risk in it. Remember, we need risk in order to create return. But if you absolutely had to pull that cash out, there's not a penalty for it. You can't pull any. If you win money, basically, if you earn money off of those investments, you can't pull any of that earned out. You can only pull your investment amount out. If you go through a bankruptcy, this money is protected in a certain way. I don't understand a whole lot of that, but I know it's true. And dividends don't create a taxable event. I'm not going to get into dividends, but some companies just pay you money for owning their stock. It's a little bit of a trap, though, because the underlying investment itself actually goes down by the amount of money that they give you, so you don't actually get any money, you just get money today. Anyway, dividends are not taxable in this, so it's a very good vehicle for buying index funds that give dividends if you care about that. What is the drawback? $7,000 limit per person per year, that is a drawback. Early withdrawal penalties on gains, so if you put $100 in, it goes up to $200, you can only take $100 out in the short term. So some of your money is locked up, that's actually a good thing. But you can't get that money if you need it. And after a certain age, there is a required minimum distribution. They do that so that you don't just pile money in there forever and never touch it and let it gain forever. After a certain age in retirement, they make you take a percentage of it out. But you're going to need to do that anyway. So those are the benefits and drawbacks to the IRA. Does anybody have any questions? That's a big topic. Next is 401k. The 401k acts a lot like an IRA, but it's a little bit different. One of the number one benefit, and the reason why you should invest in this first most of the time, is that it is a bucket just like the IRA. It's a place to put money that you can then buy stocks with. Think of it as a savings account, kind of, except that savings account, you don't keep it in cash. You go buy stocks with it, index funds, that type of thing. That's one of the drawbacks, is that your employer is totally in control of this. You might have a job that doesn't have this. But if you do, it's an incredible vehicle because potential employer matching is huge. Like my job, if I put $100 into my 401k, they match it up to 5% of my income. So I am immediately doubling my money, which we all saw how hard it was to double our money in week 1, week 2. Anyway, it's very hard. It takes a long time investing to double your money. The 401k match, they just double it. Boom, right there. Your employer doubles up to 5% of your wage. Every employer has a different plan, so check with them on what it is. But if they offer that, it's a huge, huge, huge thing. Another benefit, $23,500 per year is what you can put into a 401k. And those are even malleable with different plans. It does have some bankruptcy protection, and there are Roth and traditional options available, whether all that. It depends on your employer. So those are the benefits. The drawbacks are the index funds that are available to you might have extremely high costs. So we talked about how the cost of owning an S&P 500 index fund is 0.03. Well, they might, the people that own this 401k, the employer might have hired somebody that doesn't offer those low-cost index funds. They might offer the Washington Mutual Super Mega Growth Fund, and the expense ratio on that is 3%. Like, I have an Edward Jones account right now that I need to migrate away from, and one of the investments in it, it's not 0.03% per month cost of ownership. It's 3%, not per month, 3% per year, which is, I might as well not even have it. I'm just losing money on it. So you got to watch out for that. Luckily, my new 401k at my work has the S&P 500 index fund from Fidelity in it, 0.03% cost of ownership. Potentially, some 401ks have very little matching, so look out for that. Potentially very poorly diversified. If money managers are making a lot of money off of expenses, it is often that they have you in a very small amount of stocks and not very diversified, so they can maximize the amount that they're taking out of your earnings. And then employees and money managers are in control of your money, and it's very opaque, and there's not much you can do. And your employers can just change the terms of these at any time, and you get a really complicated email that you can't understand telling you the change they've made, and keeping up with it's really hard. So 401ks are great if they're honest and good people are running them and good employees are creating them. And if they match, you're at 100% match anyway, so it's hard to lose money on that. Questions about 401ks? I know I just blew through that. That's a lot.
Generally, on the 401ks, you have choices of the investment vehicle.
Yep.
You can invest in a go-go fund, or you can invest in something more conservative. Make that request to the fund trustee, and that's an option that you have some control over.
Yep. I would counter that a bit. He said that you do have options on which funds to invest in inside of a 401k. And that is true. So when I was with Edward Jones, every year it was like, hey, your 401k is up. Do you want to rebalance or whatever? And there was a list of funds that I could choose from. Those funds weren't necessarily the low-cost funds. Someone could just make an S&P 500 index fund, right? Washington Mutual, whatever it is. And they could say, well, this fund is an S&P 500 index fund, except we weighted Apple a little bit more. And the expense ratio, instead of being 0.03, could be 1.03 on that fund. And they could only give you access to those types of funds. So you really need an honest person running the 401k in order to give you exactly the choices that are the lowest cost for you, is kind of what I wanted to get to there. Now, are you saying that you can put in a request to buy any fund that you want inside of a 401k and they have to give you that?
It has to be ones that they offer.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're on the same page. Last but not least is a straight up brokerage fund. So this is the same thing as putting your money into a savings account and then investing it. I'm going to put all drawbacks here because in comparison to 401ks and Roth IRAs, these are the Wild West. This is there's capital gains on all earnings every single year. So if you buy a stock for $100 and it goes up to $150, you pay for that as if it is, and you sell that, and you create a capital gain. You pay taxes on it just like it's income. So capital gain is as a tax rate. So when you get your W-2, you pay a payroll tax rate. Let's say it's 22% or whatever. Capital gains tax is like 15%. And anytime you have an investment that you sell and you get money from, you have to pay the capital gains rate on that. Pretty right on that?
That gets complicated.
There's lots of spreadsheets to know which tax bracket you're in and how much, all that stuff. But generally speaking, you pay a capital gains tax every time you realize growth from that. No bankruptcy protection. All that stuff is rock and roll, ready to go to be taken. All of your dividends trigger taxable events, and I should have taken employers and money managers are in control because I just copy and pasted that one. That is the end of this presentation. And I understand that there was a lot there. Does anybody have any questions or want to have a discussion about that? We talked about the buckets. This is the account that you make. Then inside of that bucket, you have to buy something that you think is going to go up in value. We talked about index funds, buying large swaths of companies so that you balance all that out. And then we talked about how much those index funds cost. And then we also talked about how we can mitigate that risk by understanding what we're buying.
Smart people have brokerage accounts, so why do they have them and why do they exist?
Oh yeah, because you have a 401k, you can only put. The question is, why would you have a brokerage account? You can only put $7,000 a year in your Roth IRA. If you make more than $240,000 a year as a married person, you can't even use an IRA. And then if your employer, you can only put $23,500 into a 401k. So let's say you have a Roth IRA and a 401k and you max both of them out and you want to invest more money, your only option is to do a brokerage at that point. Until the next year when you could fill those up again.
So my question is, if you're not in a position to learn more, to be your own broker, is it still advantageous to pay the fees to have a broker?
That's a great question. The question is, if you are not able to increase your skill and intellect to a place to run your own, should you use a money manager? The answer to that, in my opinion, is 100% yes. 100%. If you aren't willing to take on that stress, some people can't take on that stress. Some people just aren't cut out for it. 100%. Trade your money for skill and intellect. That's how the economy works. But you should be in control of that decision, though. You should have the knowledge to say, I don't want this responsibility. And I think what the point of this class is, and what I want to convey is, it is purposefully opaque. The money industry is purposefully opaque. Because the less that you know and understand, the more you can be ripped off by the industry as a whole. So understanding, yes, I am going to give up some of my return for someone else to manage it. As long as you're making that choice, that's fair. But you just doing it, having no information whatsoever, I think that this is where a fiduciary comes in. And these people are rare, but they basically are people that could have been traditional money managers, but have kind of taken an oath to only give the correct advice to someone. And instead of getting paid from the fees of your investments, you pay them a flat amount for time in exchange. I don't even know where you find one of these people. People talk about them a lot. Most of them just become money managers because why would you not? They're kind of like the pastors of the financial world. But they do exist, and you can pay them to say, hey, how do I make this decision? And they might charge you $100 an hour to have that conversation with you and transfer their knowledge to you. Fiduciaries exist, and you should find them, and you should run all of your decision-making by them for a very low cost. This is such a big topic to talk about in 30 minutes.
I've known some people get in some serious trouble with those.
With what?
Like the last one you talked about.
Fiduciaries? Who do you trust? And this is where it comes back. You got to have skill. Building your own skill and intellect is really the way you mitigate risk. It really is. Learn to learn at the very first week. That was the core.
What if you don't have a 401k option as a business owner?
There's SEP IRAs for business owners, and you as the business owner, it's your job to set up the 401k. So you have access to it. You just don't have the skill, intellect yet to do it yourself. And you have to get kind of big enough to have a 401k. It's way easier to have a SEP IRA before a 401k.